Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is Carmen with Elemental Designs, and I'm going to show you how I created my decoupage plate for the Friendship and Love Hop that was hosted on my channel. I have two rolls of paper here, and I'm going to be decoupaging this small little saucer plate, and I'm going to be using this music note paper in order to do so. So I'm going to go ahead and tear myself out a piece of this paper. And I'm going to be shaping the plate. So I'm going to create a circle, and I'm going to be using that circle in order to decoupage onto it. Now to decoupage the paper on, I'm going to spray the paper with some water first and make sure that it's nice and pliable. Then I'm going to go ahead and apply some of the glue onto my plate, and then I'm going to try to smooth out the paper as much as I possibly can. In order to smooth it out, I am going to be using my hands as well as a sponge, and pretty much you can do this with any kind of you know sponge-like or foam-like product that you might have. So here I'm applying all the glue. I've already sprayed down my paper, and that just kind of helps to make it a little bit more pliable. Now on this paper, I wanted to have a little bit of wrinkling on the edges. So this is the reason why I didn't kind of trim it down to a smaller size. I wanted to cover as much of the plate as possible, but I did want it to have some texture. So this was my way of adding texture to it, because I didn't think that I was going to be able to go in and add like modeling paste or anything like that to create to create some of that dimensional effect. So I wanted to create it with the paper itself by allowing it to kind of buckle and wrinkle wherever it wanted to do so. And it actually worked out really, really well for how the plate came out at the end, because it actually was part of the inspiration and motivation for how the ultimate design came out. So here I'm using another kind of glue just to kind of glue down the edges. Again, just gluing everything down, make sure that everything is glued down nice and tight. And then just kind of let that dry. And once you let it dry, then you can go ahead and apply your next layer. For this one, because I knew that I was going to be doing some kind of painting on it, I did apply a coat of clear gesso, which is a Finnabair product. And I applied that. The glue that I used is a Decoart Decoupage Glue. It's specifically designed for decoupaging paper. So here you see me kind of adding the thin layer of, well, I'm trying to get it as thin as possible, of the clear gesso. I wasn't sure how much of the background I was going to be keeping, or if I was going to be, kind of covering it all up. So I just wanted to make sure that my surface was prepped and ready to go for any of the other steps that followed. What you're going to see me do next, or the next step here is going to be to add some paint. Now, I attempted to add some stenciling to it. I thought maybe I'll add some cool stenciling around the edges, but I didn't really like the way that it was looking. So I kind of scrapped that whole idea and then just went and painted the whole thing. So the paint that I'm using is Decoart. Both of them, well, all the paints that I'm using here are by the Decoart brand. I'm going to be using two Dazzling Metallic colors in the color of Splendid Gold and Rich Expresso. And then the red is an enamel gloss paint that comes on really, really shiny, almost glass-like, in itself. And I'm going to be mixing that with the Splendid Gold to kind of tone it down a little bit and just come out with a really, really nice mixture, really nice color, and get those nice and blended out. I wanted the plate to really shine and pop, so this is the reason why I kind of mix both of these colors in together. I wanted it to be nice and rich, and plus I wanted it to match the paper that I was going to use. And what I ended up actually doing, I'm going to apply several coats of this actually to the plate itself, just to make sure that I get it right. And as you can see, as it starts drying, I kept picking up the paint, so I had to go back in and add more. But that's not a problem. You just make sure that once you do the layer, you just let it dry. You can heat set it and make sure that it dries that way. Excuse me. So what I did actually is with the printed with the pattern paper, the one that has the flowers. I actually just kind of fuzzy cut a little shape out. So I fuzzy cut out one of the little sections of that paper, and that's what I'm going to be using to kind of decoupage it onto my plate. So here again, you see me just kind of adding again more of that gold, more of that red, and trying to cover up. I couldn't get one section to really cover up too well because I guess I kept picking up the color. And overall, I just kind of use that as the premise, as the base for how this whole thing turned out. Now, once I had these colors down and I started adding the rich espresso, I started kind of decorating the edges of the plate first, because I'm still kind of fiddling with what exactly this is going to look like at the end. I had the color scheme down, but I wasn't really sure, in which direction I was going to go. So I start adding all of the little dashes along the side. Um, just to give the plate kind of like a little look. And then I start kind of implementing a little bit of that rich espresso, which is like a really pretty brown color, onto some of those ripples, those natural little raised paper, the paper that kind of form like these little vines. You can almost see them. They kind of form like these really natural kind of vines. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to go with that. And since I was already kind of using flowers, I figured that would just help and, make everything kind of look a lot prettier and bring it all together. So that's pretty much what you see me doing here. I'm just kind of going over some of those little raised paper edges, some of those little creased areas, and I just start kind of going in with a really, really thin brush, and just kind of very lightly adding them in and just dragging them out, and creating all of these little branches throughout the whole plate. So I do this throughout the entire plate. And I was really liking how this was looking. I was almost tempted to leave it as it was, but I'm like, no, you have to go a few more steps. Just keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward. You never know how this is all gonna look. Um, And so once I started kind of doing all of this and I started adding all of these different branches and all of these different things, I started thinking, okay, these branches are kind of bare. What are you going to put on them? How are you going to decorate these branches? Part of me likes to leave branches kind of empty. I don't know why. Maybe because flowers can sometimes be a little bit daunting. They could be a little bit difficult. My mind is the way that my mind works. I always it works more towards the realistic look of things and not so much the cartoony look, or animated kind of look of things. So sometimes that kind of gets in the way of me being able to actually paint some things down, because it kind of ends up looking very cartoonish and I don't like it. So then it's back to the drawing board. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to leave the branches bare. um, but I actually break that fear, and you will see that later on. I kind of break that fear. I'm like, I just go for it. Just go for it, Carmen. Just go for it. So here I'm just kind of, again, just decorating the edge, and I'm just adding a full layer of the rich espresso all around the outer edge of the plate, just to finish, make the plate look very complete, very finished on that aspect of it. And then once this is done, I'm going to start decoupaging in, that little piece that I trimmed out. Once I put that on the plate, though, that kind of set the tone for me, because it started looking very oriental with the color scheme of the red and the gold. It just really took me to, like, what I've seen as far as pictures of sightseeing, so on and so forth. When it comes to their infrastructure, when it comes to their beautiful buildings, and just the way that they create everything, the way that, all of those beautiful decorated and decoed out, rooftops, and just, from going to like Chinese buffets and stuff like that, which I know is a little corny, but just the way that they decorated, they always implement a lot of red and a lot of gold um, in their decorations, and in their decor. So once I had that there, I'm like, I think this is where I'm gonna go. So I actually end up going into the computer, and well, I didn't go into the computer, but I went on Google and I started looking for like oriental type of girls and stuff like that, and just looking for something that was really cute, very pristine. I looked for something that looked a little bit vintage to me, um, and then I printed some out, and then I ended up choosing one that I liked. And I'm going to go through a whole process of actually altering that image up itself, and then adding her on as well. So here I'm just kind of smoothing out this image, making sure it's on really, really, really well. And to do that, I use my finger and I use the decoupage glue. Again, this is a really high gloss glue, so it actually just all goes well with the thing. But overall, I think when it dried, it did retain some of the gloss, but it kind of all went very well with how glossy the plate was in the background. So this is the girl that I used, and What I'm going to do with her is actually, I'm going to gesso her up with the clear gesso because I want to make sure that I don't start peeling away at paper, so on and so forth. And here I'm just trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to use her? Where am I going to place her? And then I'm looking at her outfit and I'm like, the colors are a little bit drag for me because I guess this is like a watercolor painting, and the colors wasn't really doing it too much for me. I like the way that she was standing and how she was kind of with one arm raised, and then she had like flowers on the other hand. So I really liked that, but I didn't like the colors. So here I'm actually going to go in with some lace. So I started trimming up some lace and just figuring out, okay, how do I want to put this on? Um, and I did kind of struggle a little bit with this only because it's not so easy to add the curved lace and make it all look kind of flat. That was for me a little bit of the hardest part there. So before I start adding on the lace, I'm like, you know what, I don't like the colors, so let me go ahead and just intensify these colors. So with the same paint, the True Red on the enamel paint, I started kind of going in. And I also, for some of the darker creases on her dress, I went in with the Rich Espresso. So kind of keeping it all in theme, all with the same kind of colors that I was using. So I'm going to paint her whole dress with the True Red enamel paint by Decoart. And I'm going to finish that whole thing out because I really want it to pop. I want her skin and her hands to be the lightest aspect of the image. Obviously with the exception of the white lace. But I wanted her, her other features to kind of stand out a lot more. So this is kind of how it starts looking. And I really did enjoy how this whole thing came out. And overall, at the end of the day, when the plate was all said and done, I think it looked beautiful. And it is definitely something new for me to do. And I think that I'll definitely do some other ones, some other plates, now that I get an idea of how it actually all works. But and if you can notice on my plate, you can probably see that there's like a little air bubble there. And that air bubble happens pretty much because I did the plate paper all in one shot as opposed to adding it in layers. If you want to eliminate some of those issues, then definitely make sure that once you lay your plate and it dries, like let it dry completely so that you can see where the air bubbles are, and then you can kind of cut a little slit into those air bubbles and add some glue inside, flatten it back out, and then maybe just decoupage another thin layer of paper right over that section before you go painting, and then you'll be able to eliminate some of that issue there. So here I'm adding the lace with some glue, and I'm going to let this dry before I start going to the next steps. So I'm going to add one side and then I'm going to add the other. I added some double-sided tape on the back just to kind of hold it in place somewhat to let me kind of, maneuver it a little bit and work with it. I was kind of bending her arm a little bit, so I had to trim off some of that excess lace there on the top just to make sure that her hand doesn't buckle all the way out. And then I'm going to trim off some of this lace and really get the shape that I'm looking for how I wanted her to overall look. So it's kind of like playing dress up with paper dolls, just using fabric instead of using paper. But I really do like how she came out at the end. So a little bit of work definitely pays off in the long haul. Once I get this done, I'm going to let this dry before I can go on to the next step. So before I start cutting and all of that stuff, I'm definitely going to allow this to dry. I'm going to make sure that the fabric is on there nice and tight so that I can continue to manipulate. And again, I used double-sided tape on the back, so I was able to adjust, just, make sure it's secure the lace on the back and be able to adjust a little bit of the angles that I was creating on the lace with adding the lace to the paper. Sorry, you guys, I'm getting tongue-tied. No coffee this morning. So now I'm trimming off the excess. So now I'm starting to stay a little bit more truer to the shape of what she's looking like. And overall, again, it's just a little bit of work. I didn't back her up with cardstock, which is probably where what I should have done was backed up with cardstock. This is just regular printer paper, so it's really, really frail, and that kind of interfered a little bit with me trying to get it all together, but I did get it to work at the end. So she was holding something in her hand, and I just decided to turn it into the branch color with that rich espresso, just so that it kind of matches, and then I'm going to have her looking like she's getting something off one of the vines. Now, once I did that, I said, okay, she's looking like she's grabbing something off one of the branches, not vines, one of the branches. So now I have to put something there. So this is like the moment where I had to break the fear. I'm like, okay, I need something. I need to do something. I need to do something. I added two little dots on her eyes just to make sure that those are kind of shiny and they pop out when you look at her really, really close up. But I didn't add more black other than that. And here I'm going to use a rose. This is the rose that was gifted to me by Borico's Crafting 100. And it's a really, really beautiful rose. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to add two little gold elements, just again to keep it in theme with the color scheme of what I was using. I have a whole bunch of other flowers laying around because I was trying to play with arrangements while I was letting it dry just to see what other color flowers I can add in here and still make it look kind of cute. But I think that it was taking away from the actual plate itself. So as you can see, I've started, I kind of dove in and I started dabbling and adding some paints on there. So pretty much what I'm doing is I'm mixing titanium white with actually some of that that red, that true red, that enamel red that I already had on my plate. And then I'm just dabbing in, you know, little petals here and there, and filling in that background so that it doesn't look so so blank, so plain. And this is almost done, you guys. Once I do all of these little tiny flowers, then the only thing that's left to do is add my sentiment, which is going to be the word friendship, which I am going to pretty much, again, just paint a little bit. This is from Dollar Tree sticker packs, and I just pretty much alter them, you know, whenever I need, or I use them as they are. I kind of fiddle around a little bit with figuring out which of the stickers I wanted to use at the beginning, because I wasn't going to use them as they were. I was going to, you know, decoupage them on. So I was only going to be using one layer. And the stickers that I always buy are the ones that are very dimensional, the ones that are dual layer. And they're usually like a cardstock, like a cardboard almost kind of, very thick. So I wanted to make sure that this was going to work really, really well. So I added some of the same flowers that I added onto the tree. I added them onto one hand to make it look like she was picking flowers and then kind of bunching them together on one hand. That was kind of like the whole idea behind that. And as you can see that I'm kind of going into that little section is because I had to remove one of the air bubbles there. And I learned from this experience, because now I know don't paint until it's completely dry, because now I have to cover that spot up. So I'm going through like butterflies and just different things, trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to put there? And then I'm like, you know what, you need some kind of a bird coming in. So I started looking through my stickers and I found one. Yay! I trimmed off all the excess border that it had around it, and I just left the bird itself, and it looks like it's in flight. Um, and it's kind of like a grayish tone, so it was a different color, so that kind of you know, balanced out really well with the background itself. And then I just decoupaged that on, I glued that on and make sure that was there nice and secure, nice and tight. um, and now I'm going to play around with my friendship word, and I'm going to decorate these edges. And then this will be it, you guys. I hope that you have enjoyed this process video. Let me know what you guys think. Is there anything else relating to this kind of projects that you would like to see? Do you like these whole you know, decoupage decorations and stuff like that? I'm really thinking about doing something that is home decor related, because I'm thinking about doing some home decor and creating some things for my home. So let me see if that's let me know if that's something that you guys would like to see. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope that you have enjoyed this. I'm going to add some pictures at the end of this video so that you guys can see what the whole process, you know, what the final look was at the end. Definitely check out the hop, and thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye.